Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the ISF Bright Talk channel. My name is Hui Shan, Senior Analyst at the ISF, and I'm extremely excited to welcome you to our fourth session of this ISF Cybersecurity Showcase Week. I'm delighted to be joined by Paul Holland, Principal Research Analyst at the ISF, who will be providing insight into how organizations can enhance the way they protect their key resources. So before we start, there are a few housekeeping items to cover off. So this presentation will last for approximately 30 to 40 minutes, and then we'll end with a question and answer session. Please make sure you type any question in the question box on your screen at any time. All viewers are automatically muted, and so if you are experiencing any technical difficulties, please leave the webinar and dial back in. Finally, this session, as well as all of the sessions throughout this week, will be recorded and available on demand via our Cyber Awareness Hub, which you can access using the link below. So with this being said, I will now hand you over to Paul, and I will return for our question and answer in about 40 minutes time. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you, Hui, and welcome everybody. So yeah, today I'm going to be talking about collaborating to shift away from shadow OT, which I think is a really important topic. I think we've found over the years that obviously there is a massive increase in connectivity between OT, so operational technology, and ICS, industrial control system environments, and the internet and internal networks. So just as a quick introduction, so yeah, like we said, so I'm Principal Research Analyst at the ISF, and I've been with them since March 2019. And my current research project is industrial control system security. I've been author to some other papers whilst I've been at the ISF on securing containers, deploying open source software. And I've also helped with using cloud services securely, and demystifying zero trust. So onto the ICS, which I've been researching. So we've looked at it in two different ways, both kind of as shadow OT, very similar to shadow IT, the fact that these things are appearing on networks without any real understanding from the technical teams. And also looked at it as an expanding of the convergence between the environments. We termed that kind of organic convergence because it just seems to be happening rather than necessarily by design. Which is, you know, a very important aspect that people need to understand, that a lot of these OT and ICS devices are appearing either on the network or connected to the internet without anybody fully understanding that, one, that it's happened, or two, what these devices are, what they can do. So we've had, like I said, we've had shadow IT, but now we're moving on to having to worry about shadow OT. And what we're talking about there is the fact that these devices are being connected for various different reasons. Now, it could be as simple as an IoT, Internet of Things device, or an IIoT, an industrial Internet of Things device being attached to a network. It's been put in, say, the OT environment or the ICS environment. And it's got either Wi-Fi or, say, 4G, 5G connectivity. So it's being connected up to the internet because that's what it needs to be able to work. But it's also connected to all these other devices as well. But also, you've got organisations that are demanding more access to this environment because they want to understand it better. So again, sometimes they're just being connected up because somebody wants to do some data analysis to see if that's the device is working in the best way possible. You might find that somebody's connected it up because they need access, a third party needs access to it, yeah, for monitoring purposes. So they may have just literally connected it up to a router that's sitting in the plant or whatever OT environment it might be. So all of these things, it's increasing the amount of assets that are connected to another network. And so what we have is, although we have an IT environment, an OT environment, an ICS environment, they're starting to blur in the fact that IT assets are appearing across all of these different environments. And these IT assets obviously have very similar risks to what we are used to in the IT environment. They still need patching, they still need to be looked after, they still need things like antivirus and all these other concerns that we have in the IT world. But these IT assets aren't necessarily being used in the same way as we're used to in a more traditional IT environment. A lot of these IT assets are just performing one task where they're connected to one ICS device. Yeah, so it could be just because it's sending the commands to the device, or it's monitoring it, it's controlling it. And sometimes, obviously, it's multiple devices. But again, so what's happening here is that they've got a specific application on it that's connected to an ICS device. So all of these are just creating more and more overlaps. So the IT engineers have got to start getting used to working in an OT environment, and the OT engineers have got to get more used to dealing with IT assets. So just expanding on that, why is it that we need to treat these shadow IT devices differently? And what we looked at here in the research is looking at the kind of the core differences between these three environments. And you can see some real big differences when you go from the extremes one side to the other. On the whole, within the IT environment, the average hardware life cycle is about 3 to 6 years. You might find the odd device that hangs around for a bit longer. You know, we still have old mainframes out there, AS400s and things that are 10, 15 years old. But on the whole, most of the equipment doesn't last longer than 6 years. When you move along to the other end of the scale at the ICS end, you land up with about 10 to 30 years as the average hardware life cycle. People I've been speaking to, they've gone into some of their ICS environments, found devices that are 60 years old and still running, still being in use. So, you know, we replace and update these things with better devices in the IT world much quicker than we do in the ICS world. So that brings about with it other concerns. One of the other big differences is change windows. Yeah, when you can make changes to these devices, when we can patch them, those kind of examples. Again, in the IT world, on average, you're looking at about 3 to 4 times a week that changes are being made. I mean, even if you look at more of a DevOps style environment, you're sometimes actually looking at hourly changes being made. You know, they're happening quick and fast. But can you move back to that ICS end, and you're looking at maybe getting 2 change windows a year, possibly even 1. Some environments are even less than that. So how can you control and keep these devices secure when you can only update them on such an irregular basis? And I think another area that's quite important is the support levels as well. So again, in IT, we have admin access to pretty much every device we've got. So we do the first line support, second line support, third line support, and even sometimes fourth line support, you know, before we even need to talk to a vendor to get help. Again, at the ICS end, most of the devices are kind of a closed box. And sometimes even level 1 support, you know, basic maintenance is not possible without contacting the vendor, the manufacturer. So again, you've got this big disparity between these devices that we're looking after. I think another really important one is the focus of people, the triads that we have. So IT and information security, cybersecurity, we use this CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Yeah, we all kind of understand that we're trying to protect the data within the environment. But you shift towards the other end again at ICS, there's very little data within that environment. It's nearly all systems. Yeah, the only data is about how the system works, connectivity between them. So it's very little, but they very heavily focus on safety. So what we have at the other end is a different triad of SRP. So safety, reliability, and performance. Like I said, certainly in the ICS environment, that safety is key. It trumps absolutely everything when you talk to people. Yeah, anything, if you want to make changes, is it going to affect the safety of it, is generally the first kind of question or the first kind of pushback you're going to get. So you need to prove that you're not going to affect safety before you can patch a device. So these kind of core differences are really important to understand if you want to try and get security into that ICS environment. So we've just spoken about the shadow OT and this organic convergence. Well, actually, if we want to work together, it's not just the systems that have got to converge. People have got to converge. Yeah, so we've got these IT engineers, information security professionals, and we've got OT and ICS engineers. These people have got to converge together. You know, we're used to in IT and information security working closely together. We've been doing it for a good number of years, and we've got ourselves in a good place. But now we've got to start working with the OT and ICS engineers, starting to get them to understand security. But why we need to collaborate with them is because the environment is so different, because their concerns are so different. You know, like I said, CIA to SRP is a very different set of concerns. So you can't just go in there and kind of say, right, we know what we're doing. These are all IT devices. This is what we do with them. And you go and push out and you just put antivirus on it, which therefore then starts quarantining files, and then stuff stops working, which could affect safety in that environment. So it's really important to have that collaboration of people. Yeah, so we're converging the people together to work together for a better way of securing these newly connected environments. So one way, convergence becomes collaboration. Yeah, so by converging the people together with us, as well as all the devices, we start to collaborate together in a better way, using the right of expertise from the right people at the right time. Another way we can use that collaboration is in threat profiling. Yeah, so what we need to start looking at is, why is it we need to protect the ICS environment, and what's the best way in doing it? So as part of the research, we looked at the kind of the main threats we saw to ICS. So we know this is not an exhaustive list. We know there are other things that could affect it, but we thought, what are the main things that are going to cause problems within the ICS environment? And obviously there is the potential for a cyber attack, whether that's a malicious insider, an external hack, or just malware getting in. But there's other things that can cause a problem. So something that we may not consider immediately, and again, this is why collaboration is key, is security misconfigurations. These could cause a threat to ICS, could cause an incident. So for example, firewall rules that are too restrictive, just going and throwing firewall rules in there. If the IT assets, some specific IT assets can't talk to the ICS devices, then you could have a problem and things won't know how to work, or you won't be able to monitor for when there's a problem. And the same with access management rule changes. If we go too restrictive on those, it can cause problems. If you think of the potential for problems when there's a 24/7 monitoring going on, when there's a shift change, somebody logs off, somebody logs back on. In those 2 or 3 minutes while that process is happening, that monitoring isn't happening. So there's different elements around access control that we need to be careful with. And again, I could just briefly mention, if you think about anti-malware, antivirus devices, if their sensitivity is too great, they can start quarantining files that are required, because a lot of these files aren't the usual that your antivirus protection is used to dealing with. So there's lots of amended files and tweaked files and things that are out there. And also, with those IT assets, quite often they have to be on a very specific version. Yes, they have to have that specific version of Windows, the specific version of the app they're using. So sometimes installing a patch can cause a problem, which is where software misconfiguration comes in. So when we start looking at it like that, we need to make sure that we're installing the right patch at the right time, and that we've tested it, and that we know that it's going to work with the ICS device. Yeah, that's up to date as well. But also, we can't necessarily push patches while some of these devices are active. If they're working and then they start rebooting in the middle of what they're doing, it could cause problems as well. So there needs to be some very, very careful consideration when doing patches and updates and things like that. And then obviously there's still the risk of supply chain compromise. Yeah, something coming in from the supply chain. Now, this is very similar to the risk to the IT environment as well. But I think with that extra reliability, like we said about the in-house support levels, there is more of a concern around the amount of access that the supply chain, the suppliers have into the network. So we need to be extra careful with those as well. So taking those threats on board, we need to look at those threats in specific detail in relation to the ICS environment that you've got. And again, this is where the collaboration comes in. So threat profiling is a really good way of starting to understand the environment and understand the potential threats that could be coming into the ICS environment, how they might affect that environment. And therefore you can start to come up with a plan. And that's what this kind of this chain shows. But what we're seeing here is if you look at it closely, there's 10 steps in here. 8 of them need both teams heavily involved. So you've got to work together and use the right level of expertise at the right time. So where we're starting out is looking at the specific types of threat events. That's with the information security team, where they're used to dealing with all these different types of external threats that come in. They're the ones that can be the key driver in that element. But they need to explain these threats as they move through the process with the ICS teams. When you've been through most of that, you get to that list potential affected devices. That's where the ICS team's knowledge will become key, because they understand their environment much better than the InfoSec team will. Yeah, so they're there and they have to go, right, well, actually, if if this is how things are manifesting through my environment, these are the different things that I would be really worried about. Yeah, and that's where you can start to build up a picture of what you need to protect. That's when both teams start to come together and work out a plan from that threat profile of what it is that you could do to protect it. So, this is why we're talking about collaborating together, because like I said, you can't just take the standard information security stuff and just push it straight in and just put it in the whole environment, because it won't work because it doesn't work in the same way as an IT environment. So you need everybody working together. And that is I can't really emphasize that point enough, of using that expertise. Yeah. So what you need to be doing is not just going in and say, we're going to do this. It's about talking to people, getting them on board, getting them to understand why security is important. And things like this threat profiling is a really good way of doing it. You can start to get to the ICS people and, the kind of chief operating officers and people like that to understand why security is important by showing them what could happen to the environment. Where else can we take this collaboration? So I think we can take collaboration out towards manufacturers as well. Yeah, so rather than just the whole supply chain, I think there's a big focus on manufacturers. And a lot of that comes back to that table earlier where we talk about the in-house support levels. Yeah, manufacturers, there is really heavy reliance on the manufacturers or their support partners. So we need to work closely with them and collaborate with them as well. Yeah, because they are so essential to the day-to-day operations of the OT and ICS environments. So being able to talk to them, work with them, and get their understanding of the environment, their understanding of security is really key. So we look at the supplier management life cycle. So we have our own supplier management tools that we use. And as part of that, we have this life cycle. So we have done in the past, we've looked at that and said, right, this is where the supplier management team leads. This is where the information security team supports. So we look at those different areas as we go through that life cycle. What we've done is we've added another layer here, which is where is it really key that the ICS teams are involved as well when we're talking about the manufacturers for the OT and ICS devices. Yes, we need to get the ICS teams embedded into these key stages of the supplier management lifecycle so that the key concerns and the key worries that those engineers have got about the suppliers are all included. So that's at the early stage of defining the requirements, because they're going to understand what requirements they need within their environment. So when it goes to search for potential suppliers and the procurement tenders, there's not so much reliance on the ICS teams. There's no harm in getting them involved in those, but it's not quite so key if they're not. But moving forward into that, evaluating the tenders and selecting the suppliers, they definitely need to be involved here again, because they need to look at those tenders in detail and make sure that they understand what the manufacturers are actually saying and that it matches what they want. And again, as part of the negotiations and agreeing the contract, they need to be there and ready to be involved in case there's any changes between the tender and the actual contract itself. And obviously they're very key to making sure that the performance is monitored and any problems remediated. Yeah, they need to flag them up as soon as possible back to the supplier management teams. Why do I think it's important for the collaboration with manufacturers? Is because of some of the additional risks that you have within that ICS environment. There is a limited pool of manufacturers. Yeah, there's a much wider set of manufacturers across IT compared to a lot of ICS. Yeah, you'll find that some of the ICS devices, sometimes there's only one manufacturer you can buy the device from that you need, but certainly there's generally only a handful that you can look at. So working with those manufacturers is really important. Implementation partners as well. So implementation partners are there to install the ICS devices on behalf of the manufacturers quite often. Some manufacturers do it themselves, but in some areas or some countries, they use implementation partners because they don't have anyone already out there. But you need to work as well with the manufacturers to understand the implementation partners and with the implementation partners themselves. I've come across stories where their organizations have bought the same device but it's been implemented differently in different countries because different implementation partners were being used. So a lot of that comes down to, at the start, understanding who the manufacturers are using, talking to the manufacturers and making sure that they understand their implementation partners. And then as well, if you can, working with them implementation partners yourselves to make sure they're doing things consistently for you as well. IIoT. So this kind of real jump in Internet of Things devices and industrial Internet of Things devices is really pushing the amount of connected devices within OT and ICS environments. So again, getting on the front foot with those manufacturers as well, talking to them about what they do to secure their devices, and looking and understanding their business model, because you don't want to buy a device that's not going to have the company that manufactured it doesn't exist 6 months time, because then you're not going to get any updates. Potentially the cloud back end it's connecting to will stop working, those kind of things. You need to make sure that you're really comfortable with your IIoT providers as well. And one of the biggest risks, as slightly alluded to before, with extra remote access, because of the amount of support that's needed, manufacturers quite often want remote access into your own network. This was certainly heightened over the pandemic, where there was obviously a slight reluctance to send engineers out to site, because of COVID. So they've pushed for more remote access. But this remote access needs to be understood and controlled. So you need to talk to your manufacturers to make sure they've got a decent security posture themselves. They've got security controls in place at their end, as well as talking to them about how they're going to connect into your network and making sure that you're protecting your network as much as possible. How can you work with these manufacturers to make them part of security? Yeah, we talk about needing to do it, and I've just highlighted some of the reasons why it is important to do it. But what are some of the things we can do? So again, coming back to that remote access, making sure it's secure. So the two kind of key elements is bastion hosts, possibly, or sometimes called jump boxes. So where you install a host device within your own network, and that is where the third party, your supplier manufacturer, connects into. So you've got full control over that box. That box, you control the access it's got, you control the software that's on it. So you can make sure that only the most limited amount of software is available, the most limited amount of connections is available. Similar to kind of access management, where you're looking at the least privileged kind of access. So you've actually got control of what they're connecting to, like that, rather than just connecting straight to the devices from their own network. So that's one really good suggestion. The other one is looking at a CODA connection, and that kind of comes back to what I was saying about making sure they've got a good security posture. You list out a CODA connection, which becomes part of that negotiation process when you bring a manufacturer online via your supply chain processes. So you list out a part of that CODA connections, all the things you expect of them to have done for their security before they connect into your environment. So you get them to sign off that they're doing all these things that bring them to the level that you want them to be within your own environment. Secure by design. So we use that a lot, obviously, with software, but actually we need to look at secure by design as well for hardware as well. So working with the manufacturers to understand what they do for security when they're designing and building their own products. Also when they're updating their own products as well. So, you want to really understand the whole process. And I think this becomes part, again, of that supplier selection process when you're going through it, is making sure that the manufacturers are doing things in the way that you're comfortable with as an organization. That they fit your risk appetite, your risk profile. I think as well, on the secured by design element, actually trying to work with the regulators within your industry as well, getting close to them so that you can start to understand what the regulators are expecting. And especially where in the ICS/OT environment, there's a lot of kind of regulations that we believe are going to be coming out soon. We've got IEC 62443, which is still kind of building up and emerging and finding its feet. So actually working with regulators, you can help to shape the regulation. And maybe even by working with them and collaborating with the regulators, you can actually push some of your ideals that will fit your kind of risk appetite into some of those regulations that could be coming out in the future. I know that's not going to be an easy one to achieve necessarily, but it's something that organisations can maybe look and strive towards. There is also, with manufacturers, managing the risk out. Now, that can be a long process. So you start to replace equipment as it goes end of life with more secure devices, newer ones. It could be, if you start to get trouble with a device, if it's having problems, rather than spending money fixing it, why not replace it with a newer, better device instead? So there are ways we can potentially accelerate that. You can look at updating legacy contracts. So if you can't get rid of old devices, look at the contracts you've got with the current manufacturers, your current implementation partners, the suppliers that deal with it and look after them, and look at updating those contracts to make sure you've got kind of security requirements in there. Because if you go back to that earlier stage where I said 10 to 30 years average life cycle for the devices, if you've got a bit of kit that's 10 years old, the chances are the contract that you agreed at the time wouldn't have had any security requirements in it because it wasn't seen as an issue. Yeah, I mean, IT 10 years ago, we were just, we were doing those kind of things, but we were still having to push a lot for those ourselves. But ICS on the whole wasn't really connected 10 years ago, certainly 30 years ago. So those contracts probably won't even have those clauses in them. So you might need to go back and look at those to try and improve your security posture. Then there's ways of looking at enhancing the kind of selection process. So I've mentioned a few things that we could add into that selection process, but certainly part of enhancing it is making sure that you get the ICS engineers, the experts with those devices and those environments involved in that selection process. But one alternative method potentially when you're looking at suppliers is rather than actually purchasing all this kit, is actually leasing it. Now, obviously, that brings about a whole different financial model. So that's a completely different conversation on that side. But if the equipment is leased, it's actually down to the manufacturer on the whole to make sure that things are up to date. They're running, they're working. Yeah, they're fixed as soon as possible. They're maintained on a regular basis, which includes all the patching, let alone the physical maintenance stuff. So that could be an angle to do on it. There are obviously downsides to that. Like I said, it's a completely different financial model, which might not suit everybody. But also, if the manufacturer or supplier is therefore tasked with making sure things are up to date, they may want to force it on their own timescales rather than yours. Yeah, so although you might have a 6-month change window, they're saying, well, we've got this, and the contract says we need to make sure it's up to date. So we're updating it today, not in 3 months' time. So there are some concerns around that again, you could agree as part of the contract. Another one as part of the selection process could be making sure that you get an SBOM. So a software bill of materials. And what that is basically making sure that you've got a full list of every piece of software, every kind of component that is part of the device that you're purchasing. Because what we do find is you get OEM devices sometimes that are bought in by a manufacturer and put in their own device. So they may not fully understand what it is. Yes, that's OEM, original equipment manufacturer. So that's come from someone else. So that might have an old version of Windows on it that the manufacturer of your device doesn't realize is there, for example. So by having this SBOM, you get a list of everything that's sitting on there. Yeah, so that you understand all the things and you can keep an eye on, well, actually, I can see these patches are going to be required for this device, so I need to talk to my manufacturer. So the whole piece here, like I said, is about getting the right level of expertise, the right people in at the right times and getting them working together so that you use all that expertise. So we need to use the IT people's expertise, the information security team's expertise, the supplier management team's expertise, and the ICS and OT engineers' expertise, bringing them all together so that we can create a secure environment. This research here that I've just been speaking about covers the first 3 papers that I've been doing as part of this ICS Insights series. We will be producing more as we go along to expand and help more within the ICS environment. Currently, the 3 papers are only available to ISF members, but the first paper, Organic Convergence, which explains the difference between the environments and how these environments are changing and how they're converging, and gives some hints and tips on how you can start working together, is actually available on the ISF external website, and it's actually in the attachments link as well if people are interested. But for me, like I said, collaborating together, working together. You know, we've had to do it in IT and it's worked really well. Yeah, where we work together, we're really successful at securing things. So we just need to start using those same kind of skills working with the ICS engineers. But because they're used to dealing with their environment, they've been looking after it for so many years without having to worry about security. You know, we've got to start slowly. Yeah, so we can build up that trust in both directions, that we know that we both know what we're talking about, and using those right experiences at the right time. And that's why, you know, I think things like I said, the threat profiling is a good way of starting to get the teams talking together about the same thing, but using those different angles and using that different level of expertise as we move through. So that covers the presentation through. So now, like I said, we've got time for questions. If you have any more questions, please, you know, while we're doing them, please keep putting them in, because, you know, we've got some time left and I'm quite happy to answer as many questions as possible. But thank you for listening so far, and hopefully you found it useful, and then hopefully I can give you some good answers to any questions that come through.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paul. It was very informative and insightful session. So as you mentioned, we are now opening the floor to the questions the audience have been sending throughout the session. And please note the question box is still live, so please input any further queries you might have around today's discussion. Okay, and let's start with, this question. So as you have covered a lot about the collaboration, so are there other areas where organizations can look to collaborate to help secure OT/ICS environments?
Yes, I think there is, to an extent. I mean, there's the business needs to work a little bit closer with the kind of operational side as well, because I think you find that the kind of the front facing side of most of the businesses are trying to go off and, you know, kind of obviously sell whatever product it is that's been purchased, etc. But they need to obviously understand what's happening in that back end, and they need to understand what's important with the security side. But what will happen is, as these things are being sold as well, is that customers will be asking, how are these devices secured, for example? So that's another angle. They need to be putting this information back, saying, you know, how are we making sure that what we're producing is going to be safe and secure, or that we can maintain whatever service it is that's being provided. Yeah, so, you know, if, for example, you know, if it's a warehouse environment, if you look at something like retail, you know, anybody that's purchasing those products might want to think about, well, if they're producing them, are they still going to be able to get them to me? You know, so are you thinking about security to keep that reliability performance side up as well, that you can keep your OT environment operating the whole time? So there needs to be a bit more crossover like that. I think that you need to get security slightly more embedded into that kind of ICS OT environment. So there's another element that I think that, although it's not completely different areas of the business, I think you need to have some more responsibility for security in that operational environment. So I think if you're looking at something like maybe a BISO, so Business Information Security Officer, so they would sit potentially in that ICS section of the business. They work for that section of the business, but they have that kind of dotted line back to the CISO, where they have to understand the group side of it as well as the other side across, and the actual ICS elements as well. Or you could look at things like security champions. You know, I kind of look at trying to get security into ICS in the same way as we tried to get security into DevOps. There's multiple angles you can get to turn DevOps into DevSecOps. So I think we can change ICS into ICS with security. Yeah, so security champions is a way of doing it. You could create, like I said, a BISO role. You could have a lower level role where you have a member of the kind of security team who becomes a member of the team of ICS engineers. Yeah, so they can start to learn from each other. Or you find somebody who's got an interest in security in that ICS team and give them that responsibility. Yeah, so there's multiple angles you can take. You can look at just encouraging them by setting them goals and targets in their kind of their yearly reviews and things like that. You can actually write stuff into contracts, so you need to consider security. So there's loads of angles we can get to kind of increase that security thought and that process into the ICS environment.
Yes, as you said, the collaboration means improvement, right? That's further secure our ICS, IT, and OT security. Also,
Yeah.
you mentioned about engineers. So we have
Yes.
InfoSec engineers, ICS engineers, OT engineers. So
Yeah.
how can you help to encourage engineers to be more invested in security?
Yeah. Yes, that's important, and I think that's part of building that initial collaboration piece as well. They need to understand why security is important to them. Because, like I said, they haven't needed security for many years within their environments because, on the whole, they were air gapped. They didn't really have to worry about it too much. There's the odd story like the Stuxnet. So sometimes stuff could come in via a USB stick or whatever, but it was rare. So it wasn't really at the forefront of their mind. Now it kind of needs to be. So it's explaining why it could affect their job, their role. Yeah, why it could affect safety is generally the best start. Yeah, what security incident could happen that's going to affect the safety of their environment that they're really concerned about. Again, like I mentioned earlier, that's kind of their ultimate concern is the safety element. Yeah, most ICS environments will have loads of safety cases built around separate entities or devices within there, and anything changes, they have to look at reviewing that safety case. So if you can show how a security incident could affect that safety case, then that's something they're going to go, well, actually, I might need to worry about this. But we need to be there to help them. We don't want to just kind of throw this stuff at them and say, you've got to worry about this now. It's about talking to them, getting them understanding that there is a risk there, but being there to help them and support them, explain it to them, and help them understand how they can do something about it. Yeah, we don't want to just leave them in the lurch, leave them on their own, but we need to get them invested in the whole security thing. Ultimately, you kind of look at it, and if there's a major security incident, at the end of the day, they could land up not having a job anymore. If it takes the whole ICS environment out, the business is not making any money. If they can't get that back up and running quickly, there isn't a business anymore. So, there is that ultimate seriousness underlying it as well. I wouldn't necessarily go in with that as the first thing you say to them, but it's, if you really need to drive that message home, that's something that you could always also use that angle.
Yeah, exactly. I think, as you said, so it kind of lead to the next question very naturally. So
Yeah.
maybe a lot of people are still thinking, do hackers really understand the OT devices, as you have introduced the differences between the IT, OT, and the ICS? Do the hackers really understand those OT devices, which can be very focusing on operational, right? And
Yes.
is this something that we do need to worry about or need to worry about now?
Yes, I think certainly the answer to the second part is definitely yes. We do need to worry about it now. I think going back, maybe 5 years or so, it probably wasn't so much of a worry because the devices were only just starting to be connected, and it was probably by accident that a hacker may have found themselves in an ICS environment. But now, we can see this a lot within business and certainly within IT, the hackers are becoming more FA. It's not so much about just some script kiddie trying stuff out. Hacking is now a business. So we kind of have crime as a service now. Hackers are selling tools to other people so they can get in there. So because it's a business and because we're looking at on the whole, with these severe hacking, it's organised crime. So they will have spent a lot of time learning about these devices. So yes, they will definitely, there are many hackers out there that will understand the OT ICS environment, will understand the specific devices in there, and they will be looking for those vulnerabilities, the same as they have done for years in the IT environment. But they're seeing a much weaker environment in that ICS area because it's not had the same level of scrutiny from security teams for long enough that they're not as secure. So it's a much easier target for them. And probably, if we're realistic about it, if they get hit and start, ransom wise, when we're talking about it, it's probably more likely people are going to pay up for something like this because it's so kind of key to the whole environment. If you can't, if you lose, half a dozen manufacturing plants, it's much harder to recover from something like that than it is just to rebuild a whole handful of servers. If you've got to start from scratch again, not just the cost of those ICS devices, because they're a hell of a lot more expensive, which is partly why they keep them for so long, because of that cost. So, there's much more concern around that. So yeah, hackers can definitely see that as a kind of a good way of making money at the moment. So that's definitely something they've learned about, and they're ready. we can see things happening in the OT environment a lot more. The amount of incidents that we're seeing in the news is ramping up quite rapidly over the last few years. And where you might have seen 2 or 3 a year mentioned, it's becoming more of a monthly basis that you see something that's ICS related now in the news with a security incident. So yeah, we need to worry.
Yes, and also to add that it can be different threat or threat actors behind the scene, and they might have different motivation to take down ICS or critical infrastructure systems. So yeah, that is, we need to worry and worry now.
Yeah. CNI is obviously a big concern with those things. That goes, that becomes more likely nation state than organised crime. And that's another level that we're getting to there when you're looking at the potential threats. So yeah, definitely something that needs worrying about.
Okay, and yeah, we have a question actually on this framework that we can use. So have you seen any organizations using frameworks / leading practice, such as the NIST Guide to Operational Technology 800-82 to assist in getting OT more compliant?
Yes, yeah, there are organisations out there starting to look at some of the frameworks and regulations and stuff that are out there. So the kind of main two that people are using is 800-82 and also IEC 62443. They seem to be the main ones that people are primarily looking towards. There are other regulations in some specific industries and some specific countries. So obviously there's quite a lot of regulation around nuclear as part of critical national infrastructure. So obviously there's quite understandably, there's a lot of regulation about how we secure those environments, because obviously that's a big concern if something goes wrong there. And the US has quite a lot of regulations, especially around the kind of the energy sector, not just nuclear. So there's a lot of stuff starting to appear out there. People are starting to look at them, starting to use them. I think at the moment there's not a big uptake in it, because I think people are a lot of these are quite new. Yeah, they're kind of in their infancy. They're still kind of learning and improving. So it's something to keep an eye on. But yeah, I mean, it's anything that's out there it's always a good place to start from. Yeah, these frameworks have got some good basis in there, some good basics to get yourself started if it's something if it's a journey you're not already gone down. So I'm not trying to put people off using them, but it's one of those things that I wouldn't rush full headlong into it at the moment. I'd take sensible steps with it. As things change and improve, then you can move with them at the same kind of pace and time like that.
Yeah, thank you. That's great answer. Thank you again very much, Paul. That actually concludes our session today. So again, if you have missed anything from this webinar, it will be available on demand via the Cyber Awareness Hub, which you can access down below, and where you will also be able to download your free Cyber Awareness Month resource kit. So we still have an exciting upcoming program this week, and so I encourage you to register and share across your network. Attending live means you can engage with our speakers and have your key questions answered, but on demand is just as effective in providing a resource to strengthen resilience within your organization. So please share. Finally, if you have enjoyed today's session, please feel free to leave a rating down below. I look forward to seeing many of you tomorrow morning, where Max Brook from the ISF will be helping you understand the threats your organization faces and make well-informed decisions on how to address them. Thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye.